Good day and gratitude, family. This is Face the Nation with Bolden Unchained, and we are back again with another reading. We are back again with another reading at midnight with the ancestors, and we thank you for stopping by. Myself and the ancestors, we thank you so much for your patience and we would like to say, first and foremost, that Bolden Unchained is here to assist Black America and Black media with the uncovering and the confronting of the many agendas, events, operations, projects, bills, codes, acts, laws, sabotages against Black America. Bolden Unchained is here to assist Black America. Our first and final concern is Black America's welfare and Black America's sanity. I would like to say that anyone caught in the interim, we don't hurt or harm anyone. In fact, we will help someone that's within where we are, where we operate. But I must stress that our first and final concern is Black America. Black America's sanity, Black America's well-being, Black America's future. That's what our concern is here. Now, we are studying about history to heal the hurt, the disconnect, the self-hatred that has been taught, literally forced on Black America to perpetrate the agenda of white supremacy / racism. Let's call it what it is. That's what this whole outfit is. White supremacy / racism / racism. We don't want to hear it. They don't want us to tell it. But guess who do? Guess who waiting? Who's waiting on us? Our ancestors is waiting on us, Black America. You see them? Our ancestors waiting on us to have this immobilizing, this penetrating fear, to look at ourselves, to focus on ourselves, to take care of ourselves. Why do we hate each other? Why do we have this animosity towards each other? Is it because we feel like we didn't do enough to save us in slavery? To slave us during these times? Is it because we gave up rebuilding for us to integrate into this society? We gave up us to integrate into this society. Is that where the self-hate come from? Does the self-hate come from, like I said, because we feel like we didn't do enough during the racial violence? Is that why we hate each other? Because we feel like we didn't fight for us? We feel like our ancestors just let it happen? We got to get to the root of why we hate each other. Why do we hate ourselves? And no, it's not. We do have some misgivings that we didn't fight back during slavery, but we did. We are literally reading about it during our midnights with the ancestors. We learn about how our ancestors fought back. During our noon, relearning our heroes and sheroes. We're learning. about how we fought back, how we kept each other, how we got each other and rescued each other. We got to learn. We got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. We got to learn, unlearn, learn, unlearn. We got to go back and forth until we get this. Because our ancestors waiting on us, y'all. What the fuck? Shit, we see white America don't give a damn about us. All this fucking fog out here and shit. I'm still hoarse as hell. Everybody coming out, they sick because of the fog. Some motherfucking man-made concoction, a cocktail. Some cocktail, we're already breathing in radiation from Fukushima. Radiation from Fukushima. Go check out Radical Sister. The Radical Sister. She's on YouTube. She's on Instagram. I wish I could find her book, but I had it the other day, so I done set it somewhere. But we will be reading that book because the whole planet is saturated in radiation. Now this fog out here making people sick. I took some notes too about that fog. Now, I'm just having my throat is people having sore throat. I'm not having a sore throat, but it's very scratchy. People are having muscle soreness, sore throat, body aches, nausea, vomiting, chills, cramps, headaches, lethargic. If they out in it, I think that person was out jogging or something. No appetite, the sweats, can't get sleep. All from this fog here. I knew it was something to it when my throat started acting up, but I didn't really think nothing of it. You know, it is the change in the weather and stuff. And then I do let my windows up at night because if I turn off my heaters, it takes a long time to heat up again. So I just reach over and let the window up. But now I'm beginning to see that it's something to that fog. It's something to it. See, we can't be just blindly living Black America. Hell, white America talking about it too. Why do we feel the fear that we can't talk about it? We can't talk about nothing. Let y'all ass want to get in on it because you won't. Why? Because we know. We know Black people ain't orchestrating all of this bullshit. We just scared to say it because it's white folks that's doing it. But we need to be saved. Do y'all hear me? We Black people, so-called Black people, Black America needs to be saved. We need to be healed. We traumatized out here. Yeah, the fear that we have of white people, it is very valid. Valid. V-A-L-I-D. It's very fucking valid, okay? It is. It's not a joke. This shit happened. We don't need it to happen again. We don't need our children to grow up having us babies and grandbabies and great-grandbabies. We done passed on. They have no idea what we were saved from, what our ancestors saved us from. I want to say that everybody's a motherfucking pawn, and y'all asses know it. And you know why you're a pawn. Now, I was seeing these videos. Been seeing them for a couple of weeks, I guess. Man, at least a couple of days anyway. White folks, big and crying, can't handle it. And this is just the beginning for them. But now they see They done pushed us to the limit. We're done. We are done. It won't be no comeback. Let's all work together. Let's all work together. Let's all be one. Y'all, we got to stand up together to this. Where the fuck was everybody to stand up for Black America? Even after you grew up and matured and became an adult. You knew your mama, your grandmama, your aunties, your uncles, your cousins. You knew they asses was doing this when you was a little girl. White America, now I'm talking to y'all. If you're listening, when you see this. But what did you do? Turn the blind eye. Oh, I'm in love with Derek. Whatever his name is. Just forget all about this. Like we don't need no type of healing. Just keep them moving, keep them moving. They'll forget about it. Keep something on their brain. Put something on Black people's brain. Always keep something on their brain. Always keep them distracted. Always keep them against each other. Black man, Black woman against each other. And the buck stops here. Right here, right now. Everybody got a decision to make. This a crossroad for every motherfucking body. Either your ass is finna do right, be sincere about Black America, or y'all can let us know to stay the hell away from y'all, because you ain't meaning us no good. Everybody's sick. And you know that damn, COVID-19 done evolved. It's COVID Jr. now. What the hell is this in my hair? Shit. It's COVID Jr. now. COVID 32. All because of the hatred against Black America. The hatred against Black America. Now, mankind and humanity is at stake. Oh, yeah, we got to say mankind and humanity. Not to mention the pets of the world. Most of them extinct. Most of the pets of this world are extinct. They don't exist no more. Ain't no way to get them back. Ain't no forgotten eggs nowhere for these beautiful animals of the planet that the Creator made. The Creator made. He put those planets, those animals on this planet. And he said that man, the Black man was here. He said that man would have ordained, would have rule, govern over the animals. But now a whole lot of animals is dead. They deceased, they extinct. Because white America want to go out there hunting, wanting the skin, wanting the tusk, wanting the antlers. Mother Gaia is pissed. And the cosmos is pissed. Spirit come through. Everybody better decide whose side they on. You better decide it. Because we is this close. Sure wills. Y'all, when they say you better get right, you better get right. And this ain't no fantasy shit. No, this ain't no fantasy. This is real life reality. The cosmos in the sky, call it whatever you want to call it. Mother Gaia, the earth, is very upset because everybody know what was done. White America, you especially, you know what was done. You know what the hell was done, and I'm going to tell all of y'all, this travesty right here, what was done to black people, and that everybody helps to keep oil. Everybody oils this, see? Everybody keep throwing a drop of oil on it here, a drop of oil on it there, so that way they can keep it alive. They can keep it over Black America, keep us down, because we won't talk about it, because we won't discuss it. Where's that other book at? I found this book the other day to read it. In the Garden of Beasts. Love, Terror, and an American Family in Hitler's Berlin. And I started reading it. But I bet you, and I don't even gamble. I don't even know how to play spades. So no matter of fact, hold up. To my brother, intellectuals, I do have my cards, but they sitting on my altar because I don't play cards. So I do have them. I'm going to order some of the other ones for my grandchildren. But these right here, oh, they got facts and quotes on them, though. Let's go through them, y'all. Yeah, right? I can order the rest of them, and we could just do this. Or me and the adults, we ain't got to play cards. Let's see here. Oh. I don't even know how to shuffle the cards, but okay, right? Oh, Black America, look. Ooh, and they is so beautiful. Look. Ooh, they are beautiful. Wow. Black History playing cards with facts and quotes. Don't wait for it to happen. Get up and make it happen. Create your own future and your dreams. Nanny of the Maroons. Ooh, these are individual lessons, right? In the future, as in the present, as in the past, Black people will build many new worlds. This is true. I will make it so, and you will help me. N.K. Jemisin, Jemisin, N.K. Jemisin. Oh, look at Chadwick Boseman. See? Let's just turn him around like here. Oh, that's Vice President Kamala Harris. Chadwick Boseman was a proud graduate of Howard University, a playwright, and an actor. He is best known for his roles elevating the lives of African American icons, such as Jackie Robinson, I think we got the book, James Brown, and Thurgood Marshall. Dr. Martin Luther King. Oh, Dorothy Height, Height. Dorothy Height. Althea Gibson was the first African-American athlete to cross the color line in tennis and golf. She retired from professional tennis in 1958 after having won 56 national and international singles and double titles, including 11 Grand Slams. And we read about her in our first packet, I believe. The first packet of African American heroes. Mm-hmm. Oh, President Obama. Right there. Oh, who was? Black people cannot and will not become integrated into American society on any terms but those of self-determination and autonomy. I'm going to set this right here. Dorothy Height was a famous advocate for civil rights, women's rights, and voters' rights. She served as the president of the National Council of Negro Women for 40 years. Martin Luther King Jr. was a preacher and activist who became the most visible leader of the civil rights movement until his assassination by a white supremacist in 1968. And remember, it was in Memphis, Tennessee at the Lorraine Motel. The 49th Vice President of the United States is Kamala Harris. As well as being the first female Vice President, she is the first African American and Asian American Vice President. I don't even know her race and stuff, but you know. Ain't none of them doing nothing for us. We need to crash the whole motherfucking bird. President Obama was the senator from Illinois who became the 44th president of the United States and the first black man to hold that office in 2008. Greatness is not measured by what a man or woman accomplishes, but by the opposition he or she has overcome to reach his goals. That was Dorothy Height. Oh, it's too many cards. That's another game I just thought of. I wanted to leave that one out. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. President Barack Obama. We are undaunted in our belief that we shall overcome, that we shall rise up. This is American aspiration. Vice President Kamala Harris. There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor politic, nor popular, but he must take it because conscience tells him it is right. Martin Luther King Jr. The Dahomey Warriors. We got a book on the Dahomeys. I think it was the queen, one of the queens. Ooh, look at Mansa Musa. No, he was the richest man in Africa. And he gave so much of his money away, a whole millions of his money away. Mm-hmm. Queen Amanirenas. Queen Amanirenas. And that's her. This is the Dogons. Our children may learn about heroes of the past. Our task is to make ourselves architects of the future. So see, while our children are learning about our heroes and what we've overcome, their minds are going to start to work and click, and they're going to start to create. They're going to start to imagine and build in their minds first. When you hear them mumbling little things, trying to figure out how to make this work or how to make that work, how to comprehend what they're thinking, it's because their minds have found something that they can now work with. Because see, in this society, especially Western society, we have like two masks. A mask for when we're at home, the dual mask, dual personas or something like that. I think W.B. Du Bois' Booker T. Washington, somebody came up with a dual mask or the dualness. How you one way when you with your people and you the other way when you're around white people. Well, the same thing is similar to this right here, because our children, they don't have the dual mask yet. They just have the one perspective to see and to take in, and it's the whitewash perception. The indoctrination, the brainwashing. So see, they finna be very vulnerable without these crucial facts. Our children may learn about heroes of the past. Our task is to make ourselves architects of the future. Amarinas was a queen in the kingdom of Cush from 40 BC to 10 BC. She is famous for skillfully defending her kingdom in a 5-year war that lasted from 27 BC to 22 BC. See, I always get confused because how the time went back, like from 27 BC to 22 BC, and that was before Christ. Yeah, the whole chronological. So whoever start a math class, I will be there. For real, for real. The Dahomey Warriors was a fierce all-female military regiment of the kingdom of Dahomey, which is Benin today, what existed until 1904. Benin, you know, Benin. Look at the Joker card. That's the Joker card. Oh, this is Urban Intellectuals. Yep. That's it, Urban Intellect. Darn, it's right there on the box. It's at the bottom down there though. But see, it's so graphic. I just had to remember it. And then the UI is for Urban Intellectuals. Ooh, Amanirenas was known for her cunning military strategies and swift counterattacks. Ultimately, she was able to beat back the Romans. In one portrait, she is shown feeding her captives to her pet lions. And she had on the headdress that looked like kind of favor Nefertiti. But this is Queen Amanirenas. Queen Amanirenas. She the one that fed her captives to her pet lions. The wealth of Mansa Musa was said to rival the combined wealth of Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and Jeff Bezos. I told you his riches came from elephant ivory, as well as from mining salt and gold deposits in Mali. During the period termed the Dark Ages, the Moors ruled most of Spain and Portugal from 711 AD to 1492 AD, bringing stability, culture, architecture, infrastructure, libraries, sewer systems, and intellectualism to the region. So the Moors, during the Dark Ages, the Moors ruled most of Spain and Portugal, and they brought stability, culture, architecture, infrastructure, libraries, sewer systems, and intellectualism to the region. Mansa Musa of Mali, 1280 to 1337 AD, was the wealthiest person to ever live, with an estimated net worth of $400 billion. I knew he was. I think I knew he was the richest person to ever live at that time, I think. But it just said in the other one that he had the wealth that was combined of Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates. Put all their money together. And he still had more money than them, I imagine, especially with his assets too. Where is it at? Yep. It said the wealth of Mansa Musa was said to rival. Honey, he can give them a run for their money. Look at Africa. These are some beautiful cards. Go to Urban Intellectuals and look at all the cards and stuff first, okay? Because if I'd have really thought about it, I wouldn't have got the cards that play spades, because I don't even play spades. But There are so many lessons I get from chess. It's incredible. But I think the biggest thing for me has always been that losing is learning. Maurice Ashley. The loser says it may be possible, but it's difficult. The winner says it may be difficult, but it's possible. Althea Gibson. Never limit yourself because of others' limited imagination. Never limit others because of your own limited imagination. Mae Jemison. Nanny of the Maroons. Look, Nanny of the Maroons. And they look like a ivory tusk that she got. Oh, look at La Amistad. We read about him the other day in our one of our hero books. What was his name? Joseph Cinque. I can't remember his natural name, but I remember Joseph Cinque. Victoria Abdaraya Toya Montu. Victoria Montu. Adbaraya Toya. Adbaraya Toya. Nat Turner. Freedom is not something that one people can bestow on another as a gift. They claim it as their own, and none can keep it from them. Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah. Is that Stokely's real name? Nat Turner's rebellion was a revolt led by enslaved people in Southampton, Virginia in 1831. Before the rebellion was suppressed, 65 people were dead, of which at least 51 was white. Why not just let black people go instead of just... Victoria Adbaraya Toya Montu was a Dahomey warrior that trained Jean-Jacques Dessalines and the resistance and the strategies and tactics of the Dahomey that fueled the Haitian Revolution. La Amistad was a 19th century schooner owned by British colonized Cuba. In July 1839, a group of enslaved Mende people led by Singbe Pie seized control of a ship, which was subsequently docked in Long Island, New York. After a series of legal battles, the Supreme Court ultimately restored the freedom of P and the surviving Mende. His name was Singbe Pie. Joseph Cinque, that they kidnapped him, and he the one that took control of the ship and made them take him back to Africa. However, they took him somewhere else, and they had to have that trial, and the judge actually sent them back home and stuff. But yeah, him and the other prisoners took over the ship, and they was heading back to Africa. But at nighttime, they killed everybody but the captain and one other man, I think. But at nighttime, the other men, he had turned the ship back around, turned the boat back around. And they ended up somewhere else, La Amistad. It was on YouTube. I think you got to rent it or buy it now, but you can watch little clips of it. So you might find it somewhere else. La Amistad. And his name was Singbe Pie. That was his real name. Queen Nanny of the Maroons was an exceptional military leader in Jamaica in the 1700s, where she led the resistance against slavery. Under her leadership, the British suffered significant losses in encounters with her community, the Windward Maroons. The Windward Maroons. Queen Nanny of the Maroons. Good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. Nat Turner. Yeah, because the white people had understood that black people want to be free. That's all black people wanted. Why the fuck y'all got us in these chains like this? Black people wanted to be free. Y'all didn't wanna talk, didn't want to communicate. Y'all knew, just like Nat said, good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. Nat Turner. It's on the card right there. And white people, y'all didn't want to, white America. You didn't want to communicate. Black people was telling y'all centuries and centuries, we don't want to be no slaves. We escaping because we don't want to be slaves. We don't deserve to be slaves. Nobody does. Adbariah Toya would be remembered as the grandmother, mother, and aunt figure who helped prepare the liberator of African descents enslaved throughout the Americas. And that's Dr. Cursus Simeon Jones. You know, Mae Jemison was the first African-American astronaut to fly into space on the Endeavour in 1992. She spent 8 days in space studying motion sickness and weightlessness of the crew. Maurice Ashley became the first Black chess grandmaster in 1999. Maurice Ashley, the first Black chess grandmaster. Brothers, we have done that which we have purposed. Our hands are now clean, for we have striven to regain the precious heritage we received from our fathers. I am resolved that it is better to die than to be a white man's slave. And this is Singbe Pugh. The book said that he was Joseph Cinque, because you know he took over the ship Amistad and headed back to Africa. You know, him and the other slaves, they rose up and killed everybody, the captain and the other white men on the ship, took over the ship, and they were heading back to Africa. But at nighttime, they turned the ship back around, so they ended up somewhere else, Cuba or somewhere. We seen the movie. You seen the movie on Netflix, maybe. And here it is right here. And in the book, it said his name was Joseph Cinque. But I think his real name is right here, Sigbe Pay, if I'm saying it right. Let me just look in this book here and see. I think it was in this book here. Joseph Cinque, page 6. Oh, it don't even say his real name. Joseph Cinque might have been his real name. Because, you know, they like to take our names from us and call us something else. And this right here is talking about the ship, the Amistad. And so is this. Let's read this again. Joseph Cinque, 1811 to 1879. He was born in Sierra Leone, West Africa. And he the one that took this ship and headed back to Africa. He overtook the ship. Joseph Cinque's arms and legs hurt so much he couldn't move them. He and 52 other young Africans were chained together in the bottom of a ship. They had been kidnapped from their village in Sierra Leone and taken to Havana, Cuba. Now they were on a ship called Amistad. They were being taken to Principe, Cuba, to work as slaves. Joseph was determined to be free. One night, he and the other Africans escaped from their chains. They went to the deck of the ship, seized weapons, and fought with the ship's crew. All but 2 crew members was killed. You must return us to our home in Africa, Joseph told the 2 men. But the men still sailed to the United States. The ship was captured off the coast of Connecticut, and Joseph and the others was arrested. Some people in the United States believed that slavery was wrong. They felt that Joseph should be free. The Supreme Court agreed with them. In 1842, Joseph and the other brave Africans finally were able to return to Africa. Instead of just immediately taking them home, They actually had to have this big old court, this big trial to determine. But then I suppose they also needed to know exactly where they came from, because in the movie they made a big deal out of him drawing in the dirt and stuff where they went, where they came from, the distance that it would have been. And you know, brothers, we have done that which we have purposed. Our hands are now clean, for we have striven to regain the precious heritage that we received from our fathers. I am resolved that it is better to die than to be a white man's slave. The struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. That's Chadwick Boseman. The Dahomey warriors, comprised of all women, fought alongside men to defeat the French in 1890 during the First Franco-Dahomean War. The Moorish advances in mathematics, science, art, and astrology helped propel Europe out of the so-called Dark Ages into the Renaissance. So if it wasn't for the Moorish, then Europe would have still been in the Dark Ages. And you probably should have left them there. For all the good it's done us. This is Althea Gibson. Yeah. Maurice Ashley. That's him. And this here is Mae Jemison. And these here are our cards. The Urban Intellectuals. You can get them on Facebook. Urban Intellectuals. URBANINTELLUCTUALS. I think I spelled it right. Intellectuals. INTELLECTUALS.com. UrbanIntellectuals.com. Oh, and I want to leave this one out right here. Black people cannot and will not become integrated into American society on any terms but those of self-determination and autonomy. That's what we thought anyway. Yeah, we thought we was integrating into America on the terms of self-determination for ourselves and autonomy for ourselves. Honey, we've been steered and fooled, misled, miseducated the whole time that we've been integrated. Yep, the whole time. Spades will never be the same again. Urban Intellectual brings you playing cards with a twist. Historical facts and quotes along with powerful illustrations. This deck would change the game, go beyond the cards table, and would become a powerful tool to empower in any household. Every household needs this deck. Yeah, so go to urbanintellectuals.com and buy you some cards. Buy some cards for the babies and stuff. Yep. All right, let's see here, family. We've been on here for a while now. We haven't read because we have not read tonight because we finished the book. Remember, we finished racial violence in Kentucky, 1865 to 1940. We finished it last night. Yes, we finished that book last night. Power to the people. I must have said it somewhere. Oh, I took it back. Yeah, I took it back to the library because it wasn't mine. Yep, I took it back because it wasn't mine. So I will be looking for one to add to our library, though. So we'll have it for reference. I did want to print some parts out of it, but I'll just try to get us our own copy. So tonight, and tomorrow Noontime, we'll resume our reading about the ancestors, learning about our ancestors, our heroes. Yes. These are my saviors. My ancestors are my saviors. Yeah, I know I'm different. My ancestors are my saviors. I know they lived. I know they lived. I know they thought about me. I know they saved me from slavery. If it wasn't for them, all of our asses would probably still be enslaved, in chains. Yeah. Because the energy that's taken to put us there, we can't imagine the effort that is put into subduing Black America. But believe me, I get it. I get the fear. I get it. I know. But what the fuck can we do but tell the truth about it? What can we do about the fear? What can we do about the fear? It still happened. That don't mean we shouldn't talk about it. That don't mean we should ignore our heroes. Just like they saved us and kept us out of slavery. Ain't we gonna save our kids, our children, our godbrethren, and keep them from going into this future slavery? Yeah, I'm getting sleepy my darn self. My darn self. But yeah. So I just implore Black America, if we just, give us a little of our attention. Just give us a little of our attention. The lynchings in Duluth, Minnesota. This is not a very thick book either compared to the other books we've read. So we may save that one, okay? Now this one here, racial violence in the United States. Y'all ready? We're gonna at least read the back, the front cover, and the back cover. We'll see if we're going to read the introduction, okay? We'll see. Oh, look at all these other books. Lawlessness and Violence in America. Excerpts from American Negro Slave Revolts. New York's Bloodiest Weeks. Labor Competition and the New York Draft Riots of 1863. Northern Labor and the Negro during the Civil War. The Atlanta Massacre. The Race War in the North. The so-called race riot at Springfield, Illinois. I told you they weren't race riot, they were massacres. That's what brother said. A couple of them said that these were not race riots, these were massacres. Lynching. East St. Louis riots. Report of the special committee authorized by Congress to investigate the East St. Louis riots. The Houston race riot, 1917. Order in Chicago. Vice and politics in Chicago riots. 700 federal troops quiet Omaha. 9 killed in fight with Arkansas's posse. Plotters behind the plots. Plotters behind the plots. The Negro in Chicago. A study of race relations and a race riot. 3 major cases of color violence in the United States. Excerpts from Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Excerpts from The Complete Harlem Riot Report. The Gestapo. 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 The Gestapo in New York. Excerpts from Race Riots. Oh, my ancestors. Look how many more titles. How many more books. Yeah, we're definitely going to learn to read here. And while we learning to read and stuff, there's no shame. There is no shame learning to read here. There is no time limit. If it takes you a 30 minutes to read a paragraph, so be it. We're going to listen to you read that paragraph. And after you read it, you can read it again if you want to, because we will be reading our stories. Negro-white relations in the urban North. Relationships among prejudice, discrimination, social tension, and social violence. Excerpts from Strangers Next Door. Ethnic relations in American communities. Government and social violence. Oh. All right. Well, let me at least tell you a little bit about the author first. Grimshaw. Edited by Alan D. Grimshaw. They got a picture of him right here in the back. That's him. He's the author of this book, Racial Violence in the United States. And his name is Alan D. Grimshaw. 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 Should have got me some water to drink. Hold on, let me get me some water. You know, I've been trying to have. Yeah, we're just going to read that little bit. This is my little straw. I ordered it off some site. I got with Magic something. And if you have to use your tap water, you just put your water in the cup and just got a little filter on it. It don't filter out a lot, I'm sure. But yeah. Alan D. Grimshaw is a leading student of the sociology of racial violence in this country. The leading student of the sociology of racial violence in this country. His doctoral dissertation at the University of Pennsylvania, completed several years before the beginning of the violence of the 60s, was entitled A Study in Social Violence, Urban Race Riots in the United States. He is the author of many articles on social conflict and racial violence, and was a consultant to the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, the Kerner Commission, Kerner. In addition to his work on social violence, Professor Grimshaw is interested in comparative sociological research. He is currently completing a study of the impact of a natural disaster on the social organization of an Indian city, and in the sociology of language. In 1970, Alden would publish his Introduction to Sociolinguistics. Sociolinguistics, one word. He is professor of sociology at Indiana University. And again, that's him. He seems very humble. He seems like he's a very humble man. Put his work into this book. His name is in a lot of these other books here too. So obviously he's got more than one book. All right, let's read this here. The inside cover and the outside cover, and then I think we'll get started tomorrow. Let's see what the introductory look like first. Ooh, hostility, aggression, and violence. Patterns of disorder. Who riots? a study of participation in the 1967 riots. The riot participant. The Detroit rioters and looters committed to prison. Civil disturbance. Racial revolt. Class assault. 3 views on urban violence. Race and minority riots. A study in the typology of violence. The Zoot effect and personality. A race riot participant. Actions of the police and the military in American race riots. Look, this is awesome. Violence, a sociological perspective. Let's get started. No topic has been discussed in recent years at greater length or with more vigor than urban violence, most of which is seen in a context of racial confrontation. Events of the past 6 years have left behind over 100 dead, thousands injured and arrested, property damage beyond told, and a population schizophrenically outraged and conscience-stricken. Researchers, scholarly, journalistic, and governmental, have offered explanations which have competed with the interpretations of the right, which have competed with the interpretations of right and left and black and white extremists. While many Americans have reacted to the violence of recent years as if it were a new phenomenon, it is not. And a special merit of racial violence in the United States is that it places current events into historical perspective, from a historical viewpoint. It includes accounts of racial violence involving our principal racial minority from different periods in American history, showing these disturbing events in their historical context, as well as providing suggestive analysis of their social, psychological, and political causes and implications. See, how society seems to want to condemn Black America. Oh, they so incorrigible. Oh, they the worst that's ever been to America on American soil. Oh, they so terrible. They never should have been set free before. How white America feels about it. Don't none of them want to say it. Don't none of them want to say it. See? I love peppermint. White America. See, white America need us to forget forever what they did to our ancestors. Because they need to continually be able to forever say that this is who we are today as a people. Dangerous, lazy, disgruntled, thieving, savage. What did that other woman say? Oh, super predator. As long as they can put all that on us and we not give a damn about who the real savage is, see, we gonna always be at the bottom. We ain't gonna never heal from this shit. And I tell you one thing, too, them damn robots ain't gonna give a fuck either. This book includes reports and studies of racial violence from the slave insurrections of the 17th century to contemporary urban disturbances. It is, however, more than a descriptive record, and its contents not only demonstrate the historical nature of the problem, but also provide scholars and policymakers with a review of the major theoretical points of view. Let me read that one more time. I'm going to put my peppermint in this water. My mother loved the peppermint. So we're going to read that one more time. This book includes reports and studies of racial violence from the slave insurrections of the 17th century to contemporary urban disturbances, from the violence during slavery and stuff, to the contemporary urban disturbances. Now, it is, however, more than a descriptive record, and its contents not only demonstrate the historical nature of the problem. The problem is urban violence. That's what everybody talking about, the urban violence. Black people so violent. Black people so violent. They so violent. And it just says right here, this book is more than a descriptive record because its contents not only demonstrate the historical nature of the problem, but also provide scholars and policymakers with a review of the major theoretical points of view. So yeah, we will be looking at this urban violence from a historical point of view. Because really, in some unconscious way, Black America, the urban violencers, the ones out here with all this violentness inside of them, wish they could do it to white folks. Yeah. Wish they could do it to white folks. Because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to handle the restlessness. Mentally, physically, spiritually. We restless. We're angry, we're disappointed. We let down. Self-hatred. But all we can do is take it out on each other. We got so much work to do. And we gonna do it. It defines patterns in the past and present disturbances. Isolates empirical generalizations, and it samples the substantial body of literature that has attempted to explain this ultimate form of social conflict. So it's going to define the patterns in the past and in the present, the problems, the disturbances. It's going to define them. Watch all these race massacres come out. It's going to isolate empirical generalizations, empirical generalizations. It's going to sample the substantial body of literature that has attempted to explain this ultimate form of social conflict. That right there. Sample the substantial body of literature. So other folks been writing about why Black people is restless. And that's putting it nicely. So other people have wrote why Black people restless. But we gonna sample it. That's what it said right here. We're gonna sample what they've said in this book. There are selections on the characters of rioters, on the ecology of riots, and on the role of law in urban violence, as well as theoretical interpretations developed by psychologists, sociologists, political scientists, and other observers. These materials, taken from a variety of scattered and frequently fugitive sources. That mean like banned books. Because now there's a ban on books. Oh, honey, I got 2 or 3 pages of a whole bunch of bookstores, black bookstores, shut down. Yep, they had infiltrated them and was finding out who all were buying books from the bookstores, what kind of books they was getting, if they were having meetings in the bookstores and stuff. Oh, honey, we should have never stayed in this burning house. So these materials, taken from a variety of scattered and frequently fugitive sources, will help interested readers to understand better the new violence that has accompanied the recent attempts of Black Americans to gain for themselves the full equality which has long been promised but never delivered. All right. Also from Aldine. Oh, these right here, some more books. Let's read about them. And then we'll probably go ahead and just, get us some rest for tomorrow. Yeah. William W. Ellis. He edited this. And who is the... Okay, if he edited this book, then does that... Oh, Aldine is the publishing company. These are some other books related to this one, published by Aldine Publishing Company. William W. Ellis, White Ethics and Black Power. The emergence of the West Side Organization. Based on the premise that research on the Black community must be done with a deep moral commitment to the people being studied, this book tells the story of the West Side Organization of Chicago, an organization that is typical of the Black self-governing groups coming to the forefront in this country. William W. Ellis is Associate Professor of Political Science, Northwestern University. And the name of this book is White Ethics and Black Power, The Emergence of the West Side Organization. Hans Toch, Hanstoch, Hans Toch, Violent Men, An Inquiry into the Psychology of Violence. What emerges from this book is a portrait of the violent man, a basically immature person who has learned to use force as a compensatory tool and who can be accessed, understood, and in time regenerated. The author uses peer interviews of prisoners, parolees, and police to achieve a unique insider's view of violence. Hans Toch is a professor of psychology, School of Criminal Justice, State University of New York at Albany. Carl E. Tauber, Taeuber, and Alma F. Tauber, Alma F. Tauber, Taeuber. Negroes in Cities, Residential Segregation and Neighborhood Change. This volume is essential reading for all students of both American race relations and American cities. And that was by the American Journal of Sociology. The most quantitative and methodologically sophisticated study of residential segregation in American cities yet published. This book includes a ranking of segregation in 170 American cities. Carl E. Tauber is professor of sociology, and Alma F. Tauber is research associate, Institute for Research on Poverty, both at the University of Wisconsin. The University of Wisconsin. Robert F. Robert L. Crane, Crain. The Politics of School Desegregation, Comparative Case Studies of Community Structure and Policy Making. This insightful analysis of school desegregation in 15 American cities makes an important contribution to the urban politics literature. American Political Science Review. The first genuinely scientific analysis of the political process by which school systems have been and can be desegregated. The author seeks a total explanation for the desegregation decision by determining its proximate causes and locating their roots in the economic, social, and political structure of the community. Robert L. Crane is assistant professor of sociology, University of Chicago, and senior study director, National Opinion Research Center. Ooh, I wish we could read this tonight. At least start on it. I'm so sleepy though. Let's see what the battery looks like. And then we're going to look at a chapter. Okay. Oh. You want to get the preface out the way? It's only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 pages. Let's do it. One of the contributors to this volume commented when I asked permission to reprint his article that I was adding to the spate of books on racial violence. This is true. And I suppose that like all anthologists, I also feel a need to justify time spent in collecting the reports and thoughts of others rather than in original research and writing. There are several answers to the question of self-justification, which I have posed for myself. I should like to remark briefly on each of them before I go on to say something about the organization of this volume and the criteria for selection. Kenneth B. Clark, the distinguished and incidentally Black social psychologist, is another of the authors whose work is included in this book. Dr. Clark long ago established his bona fides as an expert on race relations and racial violence. It is natural that when the report of the President's National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders was released in the spring of 1968, his opinion on the document would be solicited. He has been quoted as remarking that it was generally an excellent document, but that he had a sense of great familiarity in going through with it, a familiarity based on the fact that he had read several earlier reports which were equally perceptive, equally rigorous, and he implied probably equally effective in participating in social change. Clark and some few other students of relations between Blacks and whites in American society have seen events of the last several years as following naturally from a long history. A history which includes a variety of expressions of social violence and intergroup relations in the United States. Most Americans, however, for a variety of reasons, have chosen to view the violence of the 60s as an unexpected and, in some ways, unexplainable phenomenon, which somehow has suddenly appeared in a full-blown, extremely threatening form. Among the more obvious reasons has been a preoccupation with other revolutionary changes in American life in the last 20 years. This preoccupation seems to have been accompanied by a pattern of wishful thinking that has somehow assumed that while there have been people in American society who are underprivileged, perhaps even systematically exploited and discriminated against, they have experienced a steadily improving situation both through their own work and through legal action by the government. An important stimulus for working on this book has been my concern that current events be put into a proper historical perspective. Some historians, at least, have long acted on the sociological assumptions. That is, they have hypothesized and demonstrated that where patterns of social relationships, most particularly of relations of power, are similar, the course of events is likely also to be similar. Sociologists operate on the fundamental axiom that social behavior is not random, but ordered, that given similar structural situations, history will indeed repeat itself. Told you. Sociologists operate on the fundamental axiom that social behavior is not random but ordered. Social behavior. Social behavior. Social behavior is not random. It's ordered. That given similar structural situations, history will indeed repeat itself. In other words, the slavery that happened to Black America, it will happen again. It can happen again. Society can be set up, led. It will happen again. We're seeing it now. Roll us back with our rights. Roll back our rights. What do you think this futuristic world, these robots are? Who you think the robots is finna control? Everybody else finna be white. They want to be white. Yep, it will happen again. Given similar structural situations, history will indeed repeat itself. This ain't our book either. Well, I would have marked it that. It's going to be some good reading right here. Somebody did write in it, though. Let's see what they underlined. Ooh, what's that? The Houston Race Riot, 1917. East St. Louis riots. Report on a special committee authorized by Congress to investigate the East St. Louis riots. The so-called race riot at Springfield, Illinois. The Second Reconstruction and the beginning of the Great Migration, 1878 to 1914. Labor competition and the New York draft riots, 1863. Northern labor and the Negro during the Civil War. New York's bloodiest week. Civil War and Reconstruction, 1861 to 1877. What they underline? Oh, they underline like Nat Turner. They underline by the morning of August 23rd, at least 57 whites, men, women, and children had been killed. Let me see, what is this talking about? Is this talking about Nat? Yep, it sure is. These 6 slaves then started out in the evening of August the 21st, 1831, on their crusade against bondage. All they wanted was to be free. All them white folks had to do was let them free. Let them go. Like somebody got a dog in here. Their first blow, delivered by Turner himself, by Nat Turner, struck against the person and family of Turner's master, Joseph Travis, who were killed. Some arms and horses were taken. The rebels pushed on, and everywhere slaves flocked to their standard. A result which Turner, starting out with but a handful of followers, must have had excellent reasons to anticipate. And then it said within 24 hours, approximately 70 slaves were actively aiding in the rebellion. By the morning of August 23rd, at least 57 whites, men, women, and children, had been killed, and the rebels had covered about 20 miles. American Negro slave revolts. Dang. Early plots and rebellions. Slave insurrection. A slave state offered this following definition of slave insurrection. By insurrection of slaves is meant an assemblage of 3 or more with arms with intent to obtain their liberty by force. Now, why should they have to obtain their liberty by force? White America care to speak up on y'all behalf? Feel free. Because obviously black people, we need some other input other than mine and ours, black media. Observing, so remember when I said earlier, does our self-hate culminate from us believing that we didn't fight enough for us during slavery, or is it the self-hate because we were taught to self-hate? But check this out right here. Observing such restrictions, the author has found records of approximately 250 revolts and conspiracies in the history of American Negro slavery. 2 additional facts of particular interest appear from the study. These are, first, that occasionally the plans or aspirations of the rebels were actually reported as going beyond a desire for personal freedom. That there were actually 250 revolts and conspiracies in the history of American Negro slavery. So we did fight back a lot. Some of the fight backs was not published. Some of the fight backs wasn't documented. How many slaves fought back, lost their lives, were lynched, shot to death, stabbed, drowned, you know. Oh. Oh, and someone commented on one of my earlier videos. The Second Reconstruction and the beginning of the Great Migration, 1878 to 1914. We read about the Great Exodus. Was that 1878 also when they went to Kansas? Well, this right here is just some parts. We're going to get out of this, but I was just looking to see what did they underline. But check this out right here. The Negro was deprived effectively of the franchise of equality in compulsory public education and of protection against discrimination in the use of public facilities. The Negro did not succumb to this attack on his rights without a struggle. The use of widespread repression and the high incidence of violence against the Negro populace was, at least in part, the manifest expression of white reaction to Negro resistance. If Negroes had known their place, it would not have been necessary to lynch Negroes in order to remind them of that place. And Ashby, she had said that that's why they did it, to remind Negroes of their place. There was considerable resistance, though. Usually unorganized on the part of the Negro population. When that resistance failed, a trickle of northward migration began, a trickle which was to swell into a flood by the end of the First World War. The manifest reason for much of the savage repression of this period was the protection of Southern white womanhood still a major plank in the foundation of programs for maintaining white supremacy. Get her ass! Now, where was we at? Because it said history would repeat itself. In spite of this, I'm going to read it again. I am. Sociologists operate on the fundamental axiom that social behavior is not random, but ordered. That given similar structural situations, history will indeed repeat itself. In spite of this, there has not emerged from all the literature of social violence, there has not emerged from all the literature on social violence a systematic theory on this ultimate and most destructive form of social conflict. The literature on racial conflict or on social violence is not theoretical. It's not theoretical. It is rather eclectic. Social scientists of every persuasion have attempted to isolate the causes of prejudice and discrimination. Social phenomena intimately related to expressions of conflict and violence. Simpson and Yinger, Yinger, 1953, is one of the more sophisticated texts on race relations in the United States. Present a classification of types of explanations of prejudice, which exemplifies the variety of explanatory theories. They speak on the personality functions of prejudice, prejudice as a weapon in group conflict, and the cultural factor in prejudice. Each of the many casual explanations of prejudice purports to isolate the major etiological factor in prejudice, therefore in discrimination and presumably in racial tension and conflict. In any given instance of racial conflict or of prejudice, however, more than one of these casual clusters has served equally well in explanation. Now, I don't know if that's a misprint because it's Causal. And I think it may be casual, Casual. So more than one of the causal clusters, I guess it's probably right, the causal clusters, the cause. Okay. More than one of these, hell, he the editor. more than one of these causal clusters has served equally well in explanation. In practice, those elements of the varying theories that best fit immediate problems have been selected eclectically. There's an evident need for a presentation of explanations, explanation. There is an evident need for a presentation of explanations of social violence representing several and there's an evident need for a presentation of explanations of social violence representing several of the many perspectives now current, so that readers can make their own synthesis, or even better, see cogent reasons for assigning priority to explanations based on the explication of social structure. And this is just a preface. I will return to this topic in the introduction when I talk about my own bias. Okay. This need was a second stimulus for this volume. I had two additional personal reasons for agreeing to do this book. The first is professional - personal. I was no more prescient, Prescient. I was no more prescient than any other social scientist in anticipating the new forms that the struggle for full equality would assume in the decade of the 60s. I did, however, begin studying racial violence in the United States some 10 years ago doing my doctoral dissertation on urban racial violence in the United States. Urban racial violence in the United States. That dissertation constituted an attempt to learn whether or not patterns in such violence, which had been isolated by Richard D. Lambert in his study of Hindu-Muslim violence in the Indian subcontinent, Lambert, 1952, could also be discerned in Negro white violence in the United States. Oh. That dissertation constituted an attempt to learn whether or not patterns in such violence, which had been isolated by Richard D. Lambert in his study of Hindu-Muslim violence in the Indian subcontinent, could also be discerned in the Negro white violence. So Richard D. Lambert, in his study of Hindu and Muslim violence, he isolated what was going on with them. And in his dissertation, when he did his doctoral dissertation, he used Richard D. Lambert's isolation of that interaction, that force, the force of oppression or power. And he found out that it could be discerned similar or same as the Negro and white violence here in the United States, because the Hindu and Muslim was in the Indian subcontinent, and the Negro and white violence is here in the United States. That's what I got out of that. Many of the patterns were repeated, and in the years since, I have continued to follow up interest in conflict and violence as social processes. Given the relative paucity of research interest in social violence, it was not surprising then that when the new violence began in 1964, people asked me for opinions. It seemed to me that there had been shifts in the meaning of the violence. Yeah! I found that some of my observations were questioned by others, and in response, I found myself wanting to review again both past history and the various interpretations of contemporary events. And in response, I found myself wanting to review again both past history and the various interpretations of contemporary events. Hence, again, a reason for this book. The second personal reason is non-professional and related to my concerns as a citizen of this troubled country. On Wednesday night, September the 1st, 1965, sociologists attending their annual professional meetings at a Chicago hotel encountered the then Negro Revolution, many of them for the first time. Undoubtedly, some had never before personally witnessed a demonstration, though probably all had seen on television the events of Selma and Montgomery, of the March on Washington, and only days before, of the Watts disturbances. As sociologists poured out of the hotel after a day of listening to papers, of talking in the hotel's bars, of committee meetings, job negotiations, and just plain socializing, they found several dozen blacks and whites marching in a picket line in front of the main door of the hotel. The pickets were protesting the continuation in office of Chicago's Superintendent of Schools, Benjamin Willis, and the alleged inactivities of Mayor Richard J. Daley in correcting the problems related to de facto school segregation. While it was true that Willis himself lived only a block away and that the demonstrators visited both Willis and Daley, it was no accident that they also picketed in front of the hotel. Of the approximately 260 papers listed in the program for the meetings, about 10% dealt directly with problems of group relations, largely in the United States, and many others had implications for understanding of problems related to racial and ethnic relations. The fact that the pickets came to the hotel was an indication of the growing sophistication of cadres of the civil rights movement. In response of many of the sociologists was an indication of their need to segregate their scholarly activity from the action of the real world. I believe that sociologists and other students of society have an obligation as citizens to present scholarly findings in a format which will help the decision makers of our society to make wise decisions. In this, I admit to an unscientific ameliorative bias. Ameliorative. Ameliorative. This book has been prepared for policymakers as well as for scholars and interested citizens. My second personal reason for editing this volume is my hope that by underlining the historical continuities and patterns of racial violence, and by presenting a variety of thoughtful interpretations of things like they are, it would be possible to make Dr. Clark a bad prophet on the likelihood of meaningful governmental and citizen response to the report of the National Advisory Commission. See why they said put it in a book? Two principal criteria were applied in the selection of materials for inclusion here, both of which are implicit in my initial statement on why I have done this book. First, materials are included which are intended to correct the historical. That's one word, ahistorical. 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 Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Maybe it's ahistorical. Ahistorical perspective. It seemed like it should be a historical perspective, but it's hard to say. First, materials are included which are intended to correct the historical perspective I have noted as being characteristic of so many of the current interpretations of urban violence. Secondly, materials are included which represent a substantial sampling of theoretical perspectives with the intention stated above that both scholars and policymakers may find them useful in moving towards a clear understanding of the social processes involved and, in the case of the policymakers, towards decisions for social redress. Given these two principal criteria, it should be clear that I have excluded selections of great intrinsic value and have included at least some with which I do not agree. There are two reasons for exclusions of valuable material. This is a long book. In some instances, there are excellent historical treatments or analytic essays which are longer than or overlap with selections which have been included. In some other instances, there are pieces which do not necessarily overlap with selections included, but which are simply not amenable to the editorial trimming that would be necessary for inclusion. Do that make sense? I don't think so. In some other instances, there are pieces which do not necessarily overlap with sections included, but which are simply not amenable to the editorial trimming that would be necessary for inclusion. I would like to have included, for example, selections from the report of the Selective Committee on the New Orleans riots, 1867. Probably the first case of a full-blown governmental investigation of urban racial violence in the United States, and particularly interesting because of the presence of a dissenting minority report that provides an early case of the meaningfulness of location in the power structure in determining interpretations of identical reports of actual events. The document proved to be simply too complex and cumbersome to permit the production of a useful edited selection. I can only recommend that the interested reader find a copy. Space considerations also preclude the inclusion of accounts of other interesting and relatively unique events. So it was about the space, you know. Maybe he could have did 2 books. Racial violence in the United States, 1 and 2. Similar considerations are involved in the non-inclusion of some important theoretical statements and materials on empirical patterns. I would like very much to have included something from Neil J. Smeltzer's Smelsers. Neil J. Smeltzer's highly suggestive theory of collective behavior, as introduced in his Theory of a Collective Behavior, Smeltzer 1962, with its value-added interpretation of collective phenomena, including riots and social violence, to get a handle on why did white folks come out in throngs of 10, 20, 50, 100,000, all fiending and savaging and, grueling at the mouth, over a lynching. That's what I get out of it. This is an anthology, however, and there is no way to reproduce Smeltzer's argument through brief selections. You can't do it through brief selections, like a little paragraph. You just can't. The entire cogently argued volume must be read. The entire cogently argued volume must be read. The whole damn book must be read. Other gaps would be obvious to the sophisticated reader. There is, for example, more recent information on the characteristic of participants in violence, and for that matter, on the victims. There are thorough studies of the activities of the police and of the National Guard and federal troops in the disorders of the 60s, some classified, some whitewashing, some highly suggestive. Like you remember in that one book that we read, it may have been Red Summer, or it could have been Racial Violence in Kentucky. And the National Guard came, or the military came, and they had their weapons and ammunition, and they started giving weaponry to white people. Remember that when we read that in one of the books, one of the chapters, and they started giving ammunition and guns and knives, whatever you call them, blades that they have and stuff, to white people. And they were supposed to be coming to help protect black people, but as soon as they got there, the white people were like, oh, they were shooting at us. They're shooting. So, of course, they took their side for it and stuff. But yeah, so I guess that's who they would be, studying, looking at, because it said there are thorough studies on the activities of the police and of the National Guard and federal troops in the disorders of the 60s. And see, that was in 1865 to 1940 when we was reading about it. So if they talking about the 60s here, Smeltzer was 1962. But up here, the New Orleans riots, when he mentioned that, I would like to have included, for example, selections from the report of the Selective Committee on the New Orleans riots. That's 1867. So I'm not sure if it's talking about the 1960s or the 1860s. But it will be going through the thorough studies of the National Guard, the police, and the federal troops during those riots. There are the beginnings of a fugitive but suggestive literature on the role of the media in mass violence, on rumors and riots, on the social and economic costs. Now, when it said they will be studying the media, remember how in those books the media would put out 5 days in advance that such and such a white lady was raped or beaten or assaulted or killed, and such black man is being hunted now, and there will be a lynching. There are also, it is true, less immediately valuable studies of the impact of television exposure on the rioting, on the socialization of preschool white children. Wow, for real? Let me read that again. There are also, it is true, less immediately valuable studies of the impact of television exposure on the rioting, on the socialization of preschool white children. So, is this saying that there are studies on the impact of little white kids watching this to see how they react and how they behave and stuff? They scared. They scared of black people, and they think that's all black people do is riot, fight, and hurt. So yeah, we all gotta study this, y'all. I mean, this right here, this ain't just no breaking the ice. This ain't just no conversation starter. And we all are gonna have different views, different perspectives of it. We don't have to do it midnight with the ancestors. I can use that part right there to summarize, It was simply necessary at some point to decide that it would not be possible to include everything useful and or current. It's still possible to read in the current press what militant black leaders are saying. So, they couldn't put it in the book. It wasn't possible to put everything in the book. But it's still possible to read in the current press what militant black leaders are saying. Some readers will miss materials which they think should have been included. Other readers, or perhaps the same ones, will feel that economies could have been made by deleting some of the materials included. I believe, however, that the two principal goals have been achieved. At the very least, this book should introduce readers to the history of racial violence in this country and to some of the more central scholarly attempts to understand that violence. And I agree. The comprehensive bibliography includes references to all the studies cited in the several sections below. Many readers will find the bibliography useful in pursuing further reading. And see, we want to read. We want to go deeper. We want to learn. We want to understand and comprehend and be better equipped to explain and teach. Begin here, but we will be expanding. We will be growing. We will be teaching each other as we learn ourselves. See? And Bolden Unchained in the future is a school. I have in my notes somewhere a school. Did I name it? Yeah, I did name it. Not gonna tell you the name of it here, but I did name the school. And this is the beginning of my school. Right. On Bolden Unchained. So imagine in the future when I unveil, when we do the unveiling. Spirit come through. So yeah, it will be some further studies, some further lessons. It's a rabbit hole. So yeah, pursuing further reading. This book is awesome for that. If you want to pursue further reading. And we will. There are, as was made clear in the introductory paragraphs, other symposia and readers. See, for example, Masadi, 1968, Hill, Andy. Numerous volumes are appearing on Black Power and the White Resistance. The Lindbergh Center at Brandeis, Brandeis, is one word, Brandeis, and the Center for the Study of Urban Violence at Case Western Reserve, CASE, Western Reserve, are only two of the many increasingly systematic research enterprises devoted to studying social violence. Prosperity. Given the probable course of events in the years immediately ahead, it seems unhappily that there will be no dearth of published materials on the topic of this book. Whoa. Given the probable course of events in the years immediately ahead, it seems unhappily that there will be no dearth of published materials on the topic of this book. What he's saying is, in the future, in the immediate future, this book, Racial Violence, other books like it, perhaps, will not be, they won't be used. They won't be studied. They won't be expanded. They won't be offered. Can you imagine? Formal acknowledgments, or to put it plainly, he's saying no one will take this book and advance it. This will be the last stop. So you see why Black America, we must tell our stories, because white America is washing them out. Formal acknowledgments to the authors and publishers represented in this book appear below. Many of the authors have, over the years, encouraged me in my study of social violence, and attempted to instruct me in the errors of my own understanding. I am grateful to all of them, even in my obstinacy. Professor Richard D. Lambert of the University of Pennsylvania supervised my doctoral dissertation on urban racial violence in the United States and can be held responsible, in part for my structural bias in attempting to understand social behavior. He has continued to encourage me over the years. Professor Howard S. Becker of Northwestern University has, for years, urged me to publish that dissertation, and when he failed to persuade me that that should be done, demonstrated to my satisfaction the need for an anthology in this form. He has been a good editor and a good friend. He has been a good editor and a good friend. In working at Indiana University, this is it after this. In working at Indiana University, I profited immensely from the encouragement and suggestions of John T. Lill, Liell, Lill, Austin T. Turk, Turk, and James Watson, Watson. Professor Owen Thomas of the Department of English at Indiana University has been a good friend and a friendly editor. Much of what clarity there is in my own writing is his. The shortcomings in sociological interpretation are, of course, my own. Thanks are due to anonymous Black interviewees and to obscure librarians, as well as to numerous professional associates who have encouraged me to think and to rethink about the problem about which this book is organized. Miss Catherine Hack, Haack, helped on the manuscript. Mrs. K. Radecki, Radecki, worked long hours in obtaining permissions and organizing the manuscript and preparing the master bibliography and catching at least some of my many editorial blunders. She also protected me from routine problems during the long period in which most of the work was done. Miss Kathleen George picked up when I moved from Indiana University to Berkeley for a year's visit the onerous task of completing a number of unfinished and important chores. My wife, Polly, provided continuing encouragement in a task that seemed to grow more difficult as time passed. Authors sometimes have tense and conflictful relationships with editors and publishers. I count myself fortunate indeed to have worked with a publisher, Alexander J. Morin, Morin, who knew what I was doing and offered both useful criticism and continuing support. Sheila Welch, my Aldine editor, showed both critical acumen and a supportive enthusiasm that helped make a difficult task easier and occasionally even enjoyable. I never agreed with all of the tactics of Malcolm X or of Dr. Martin Luther King, nor did I share their very different ideological perspectives in all details. The full magnitude of their selfless contributions to the solution of the problem of the removal of causes of social violence in America cannot yet, and probably will never ever be measured. Their contributions were great. This book is dedicated to the memory and to the hope for freedom of these two men and to other more anonymous martyrs. And that is just a preface. So tomorrow night, ancestors with us, we will begin with the introductions and then chapter 1. Yeah, we'll begin with the introductions in chapter 1. Get ready, ancestors. Get ready, ancestors. This is what you wanted. They're happy. The ancestors are happy. They're waiting. They're ready. Yeah, they ready. They ready. They've been waiting on us for this. It is time for us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're very proud. Finally, we're doing what we should have been doing. Yeah. Well, good night. Peace and power to the people.